So tonight's question is, what does it mean to pray without ceasing? So to pray without ceasing, as commanded in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 17, means to live in a continual attitude of dependence on and communion with God. It doesn't mean that we have to verbally be praying every second of every day, but that our hearts should be turned toward God in trust, thanksgiving, confession, intercession, and praise. This idea is well illustrated in the parable of the persistent widow that's introduced to us in Luke chapter 18, verses 1 through 8. So in Luke 18, verse 1, Jesus introduces the parable by stating its purpose. He told them a parable to the effect that they ought to always pray and not to lose heart. So in the parable, a widow persistently pleads for justice from this unjust judge, who neither feared God nor respected people. But because of her relentless petitions, the judge eventually grants her request, not out of his righteousness, but simply to be rid of her. So Jesus contrasts this unjust judge with God, saying, "Will God not give justice to his elect who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long over them?" So the point is not that God is reluctant like the judge, but rather that persistence in prayer is expected of believers. And that unlike the unjust judge, God is always eager to respond to the cries of his people. So this parable powerfully supports the idea of praying without ceasing. So just as the widow never gave up, we are to continue coming to God even when those answers seem like they're delayed. Jesus ends the parable by asking, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? Tying persistence in the prayer to enduring faith. The widow had no relationship with the judge, but we are children of God, so how much more should we be coming regularly before our loving Father? If you look at Ephesians chapter 6, verse 18, it states, "Praying at all times in the Spirit with all prayer and supplication." This verse emphasizes not only persistence, but variety in prayer, petition, intercession, and thanksgiving. In Romans chapter 12, verse 12, it states, "Rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer." So the context suggests that a constant prayer life is a key to enduring trials faithfully. In Philippians chapter 4, verse 6, it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." So rather than worrying about it, the believer is to respond to every situation through prayer. In Psalm chapter 55, verse 17, it states, "Evening and morning and at noon I utter my complaint and moan, and he hears my voice." So though this verse speaks of specific times, it reflects a rhythm of life marked by prayer. In Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 4, it states, when the king asked Nehemiah what he wanted, Nehemiah prayed to the God of heaven before answering. This shows how even a quick, silent prayer can flow from a heart that is always in communion with God. So to pray without ceasing is to live in such close fellowship with God that communication with him becomes the natural outflow of our hearts in every circumstance. So like the persistent widow, we are to bring our needs continually before him, not because he's unwilling, but because persistence reveals faith and dependence. So this posture of continual prayer aligns our hearts with God's purposes and keeps us grounded in his presence throughout the day. So continue to read your Bible and don't be done.